go on that guy's show. I said, well, it's a big show.
Yeah, and you want
A lot of people listen to it.
You want to have a debate with this guy about some of these ideas.
You want to introduce yourself to as many people as you can. Like, you don't get to be like, I want to sell books.
Yeah.
I want people to listen to my podcast. I want people to read my website. You know, I want to talk to different people. I want to reach different audiences. And that just seems to me 10 years ago, everybody would think that was obvious.
Yes.
Right? Not that like everyone agrees with everybody, but of course,
But
you want to
Matthew,
go on the biggest shows you can get
most
booked on.
people today still think that's obvious.
Yes.
It's just a small percentage of people that have got into this idea of platforming and deplatforming and going on someone's platform and and amplifying someone's broadcast. Like, there's all these terms that people are using now that is really just, it's separatism in a weird way. It's ideological separatism. And what we're doing is we're taking these echo chambers and putting walls up around them and, enforcing it by yelling at people, being angry at people. For having, like, my friend Tim Dillon had a podcast recently with Candace Owen. And he's like, holy shit, dude, the blowback was like stunning. So many people were angry with him talking to her. Maybe some of it was angry that he didn't push back on some of the things that she said, that they believe are untrue or biased or distorted or, what have you. But I think conversations with people that have fundamentally different values are important for us. It's interesting to watch how a person's thought process expands. Like, how do you think about things? Why do you think about this?
Well, and there's a fantasy that you can sort of make disagreement go away if you try to shut down certain cultural avenues. I mean, I think you saw that a lot in the election that just happened, and you continue to see it in politics, that it's frustrating to people that they can't just win everything and have all their ideas go through.
And shut you up.
Right.
Yeah.
But, in the electoral arena, as well as everyone else, but it's just true that, like, there's a big country, there's a lot of people in it, people have some different ideas, some different values. You don't need to agree with them. And, of course, in an election, like, it's a vote. You try to win, right? You try to get more votes than the other guy. But conservatives aren't going to go away. Progressive people aren't going to go away. We're going to continue to exist as an ethnically diverse society. We're going to continue to exist as a society with some very traditionalistically minded people. And we have to find stuff that we can make headway on. And the only way to have that kind of headway is to be communicating. Because you don't actually know what exactly you agree or disagree about until you kind of have the dialogue, right? If you go hunting around to say, okay, this thing that this person said is so outrageous that I got to just write them off. Well, okay, you write them off, but they're still just right over there.
Right.
Like,
well,
nothing.
They're not, though, in some cases.
And you can blind yourself.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, one of the reasons why people have this perception that it's a good idea to not go on someone's platform and not talk to people. Whoa, good save. Good reflexes, buddy. Is because some people have been deplatformed. People like Milo Yiannopoulos and Gavin McInnes and Alex Jones. And there's people that have been removed from these significant portals, whether it's YouTube or Twitter. And so people, they understand that that's effective. And now they want to expand that. And once they learn how to do that, then they want to do it to other. I mean, I've seen people argue for people being deplatformed for just having dumb ideas. Like, you should deplatform him. I've literally seen that in podcasts. And it's so frustrating. It's like, God, that's not how to handle things. Like, we're supposed to have debates. We're supposed to have discussions. And I think because we've accepted this idea of censorship and deplatforming as a viable alternative to listening to things that upset you, just get rid of them, shut them off. And well, that's this, and also that reinforces the echo chamber. It's people with a very limited understanding of history in terms of like what happens when you do that to people, and also a very limited understanding of just general human nature. The best way to get people to listen to your point of view is to express it eloquently and accurately and in a way that resonates. You say something to the people that are listening that they might be on one side or another. I mean, there's a lot of people that are kind of left and kind of right, and something can come along and they go, well, and they like doing this. They're like, well, fuck this, I'm Trump now, or fuck this, Biden's my man now, Trump's got to go. And it could be one thing. There's a lot of people that don't have nuanced perspective. They don't have an educated, long-term idea of what people are and how to communicate. And I watched a podcast, not a podcast, a debate yesterday with William F. Buckley and Noam Chomsky, and it's from 1970 or something. I don't know when it's from. And it's an amazing conversation. It's amazing because you have two completely opposing viewpoints. You have William F. Buckley, who's this kind of pompous right-wing guy, and you have Noam Chomsky, who was young and vital. Noam Chomsky, and it was amazing watching Noam Chomsky shut down William F. Buckley's ideas and have him challenge the points where Buckley was wrong on. And it's a great fucking conversation. And there's a lot of people today that would not want that conversation because Noam Chomsky would be Ben Shapiro or whoever, and you'd be like, oh my God, why is Noam Chomsky, or excuse me, William F. Buckley would be Ben Shapiro,
why are you going on?
Noam Chomsky would be on that show. People go, why are you doing that? You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't give them a platform. You shouldn't go on their platform. But God damn it, that's how people learn that your perspective is better, or your perspective resonates more, or your perspective makes more sense.
Well, what I think really ideological people don't understand is that most people, like the technical term political scientists call it, is they're cross-pressuring, right? So like you have some ideas that fit one way, some ideas that fit another way, some identities that go one way, some that go another way, right? And so people change over time, right? And you have voters who voted for Barack Obama, right? And then they vote for Donald Trump 4 or 8 years later. And then people who are really ideological, they say, like, oh, Trump, like, he said all these outrageous racist things. So all these people who vote for them, they must be racist too. And you're like, oh, okay, but like they voted for the black guy 4 years ago. How racist could they be? They're like, no, it's racist. And then 4 years later, well, Trump has actually gained some Latino support, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so they're white supremacists too, but like, no, right? Probably they don't agree with what Trump said about Mexican immigrants, right? I find it very unlikely that Mexican-American Trump supporters agree that Mexico is sending murderers and rapists across the country. But there's a lot of issues in politics. Maybe they agree with Trump about guns. Maybe they agree with Trump about abortion. Maybe they agree with Trump about, I don't know what, right?
Deregulation,
There's just like a
business,
lot of shit happening, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can convince people to care about what you're aligned with them on, you win, right? And if you can come across as the kind of friendly coalition that's like, hey, you agree with some of our stuff, get on the bandwagon, right? That's good, you win like that. And you're not going to get anywhere by telling everyone about how much you don't want to participate. Being like, wow, if you're not with me on everything, like you're dead to me. That's not how politics works. It's not how persuasion works.
No.
And it's not how interesting media works. You don't learn anything from shows like that, books like that, things like that, and it's frustrating.
It's also, there's a tendency to embrace this polarization and to almost like solidify it. Like even AOC after the election wanted everybody to put together a list of people that were supporting Trump and that voted for Trump and donated to Trump. I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you really asking people to make lists? You know where this goes? Like, how is this possible?
I don't know what kind of list she wanted.
She wanted a list of sycophants.
I don't remember.
That was what she said. She wanted a list of sycophants.
Oh, of like Trump
sycophants.
So we could kick them out.
Make sure they don't work. That's what a lot of it is. Make sure those people are polarized. Like these are the people that aren't on our side. These are the people that we have to shit on. And if you support them, you support all these negative things. You support homophobia, racism, xenophobia. Go down the list, and then I don't want to support that. So you get bullied into a perspective.
I got mixed feelings because I cover politics, so it's good for me when people get more geared up about national politics, right? Like, the more people care, like that's gravy for me. But I do think it's like not healthy, right? I mean, I want to go back to a time when people felt that the political arena was like for boring nerds. And and you could talk about
go back when it's like when you're into a band and then the band becomes big.
Hipsters,
like,
but not like that. Not that I want to be like a Congress hipster. No, it's that like the more people care about politics. I mean, it's good to be engaged. It's good that people vote. It's good that people.
What you're saying is you want people to actually understand what they're arguing about, and the people that are going to actually understand what politics are all about are going to be really into it.
But also to have limits, right? To just be able to say, all right, now I'm talking about my favorite band. Now I'm talking about my favorite basketball team, and I'm like not bringing politics into all of it, right? That it's like it's not. Again, I say it's like it's good for me for people to turn politics into an all-consuming hobby, but I don't think it's healthy for them or for like society. It's one of the greatest things. It's one of the last bastions we have is that everybody in a given city usually roots for the football team. Black, white, Latino, young, old, religious, secular. So it's democracy. Those kind of cross-cutting things exist in society, but we have like fewer of them, right? It seems like if you like you buy a car and that's going to be a political statement based on what, and I know, so it's like I drive a Prius, right? So people see me coming and it's like they know who I'm voting for based on that, right? And it's not wrong, but I don't think it's good, like it would be better to be just more random.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, the more ways that we can separate people, the more separating we're going to have. It's like, it is true that if you look at a Prius, I would like to see like a breakdown, like a pie chart.
How many Prius owners voted for Trump? It's like it can't be a lot, right?
Right. It's like I wonder what the number is. It's probably like less. It's probably single digits.
I mean, it can't be a lot. I would be if somebody rolled up in a Prius and got out and had a MAGA hat on. Like my mind would be fucking blown.
That sounds like something that a provocative comedian would do. If someone was just
but it's weird, right? Like, is that healthy for society that we feel like we can infer so much about somebody or something totally? It's like I wanted a reliable car,
right?
They got good gas mileage,
and
that fit in my. I've got this tiny ass garage, so like most cars won't even fit in there, but my Prius does. So that's good. Good for me.
My friend Greg has a Prius. I shit on him all the time for it, but it's a good car. Bill Burr, my buddy Bill Burr, had a Prius forever. They're not the worst cars in the world. They're super reliable.
It's boring. It's boring.
But it's transportation. Look, if I was looking for something to take me to and from the city, and I had to park in small spots, and it's ideal. It's better than a smart car. Those things are ridiculous. Like that's too small, right?
Smart car.
That's too small. See, even Prius is shit on smart cars. Right? That's the real question. How many smart car owners voted for Trump?
Zero. Nobody in America owns
fucking
those,
zero.
do
They do. I've seen those. I've seen them. Smart cars. Yeah.
I was in Germany one time. I was in this like little van with some American journalist, German guy driving, and the alley's blocked because it's just like a smart car and it's not parked correctly. So it's stuck in our way. And the German guy's like, well, we're gonna have to wait. And the Americans are like, we don't have to wait. He's like, no, you gotta wait. And this lady, she was like our leader. She was like, no, the young guys, you guys get out of the van, pick the smart car up, and just move it to the side. And the German guy's like, no, it's not possible. It's not possible. She's like, Matt, go. And so we go up. It's tiny fucking cars. We just pick it up, move it a few feet over, or like a meter, I guess they would say over there, and go right by.
They're like, this is astounding.
He said, it's not possible. And then she says to him, she's like, this is why you guys lost the war.
Oh, shit.
It was real ugly American stuff.
That's so rude.
It was.
She's trying to be funny, obviously.
But
did he laugh?
We moved the car. He did not. Germans are not.
They're a bit stoic.
Yeah, well, also, look, they're sensitive on that subject. And I guess rightly so.
They've outlawed Scientology over there.
Have they?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Scientology.
Really?
I mean, there's Thetans. That's what I know.
Oh, yeah.
And Tom Cruise.
Well, they're not into cults.
Okay.
So if anything is demonstrably a cult, like if they can look at something and go, I see where you're going here.
Yeah,
like,
that's out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true. Google that. Germany has outlawed Scientology. Yeah, I found a Scientology channel the other day. I didn't know it existed. Flipping through the channels, or maybe I knew and I forgot. fucking DirecTV has a Scientology channel. I saw this very unhealthy looking lady talking about like what is possible because of being a Scientologist. I'm like, what is this? Who is she talking to? And like, why is no one disagreeing with her? I'm like, what is this? And then I look at the channel. It's like Scientology channel. So it's all Scientology programming.
I used to walk past a Scientology church every day on my commute.
Did they try to grab you? And pull you in?
And no, but they
Yeah, reach out.
there's a lot of illegal parking that they do in there. They just pulled up on the sidewalk, and and I wonder how they get away with it. And I want
Drive somebody.
to spin up all kinds of.
Oh, remains legal. Okay,
Uh-oh.
there's been calls to ban. Oh,
We
it's
got-
banned in Russia. Okay,
we got fake news.
Fuck, yeah,
we've
that's
got
me.
to unplatform you.
Well, I always check my fake news. Court in Russia has banned Moscow's Church of Scientology, saying it does not comply with the federal laws on freedom of religion. According to Russia's TASS news agency, the country's justice ministry brought the case against the church, which is heard in Moscow. So Scientology, it says, why is Scientology banned in Germany? The German government does not recognize Scientology as a religion. Rather, it views it as an abusive business masquerading as a religion and believes that it pursues political goals that conflict with the values enshrined in German constitution. This stance has been criticized by the U.S. government. So it does, but it says, why is Scientology banned in Germany?
Yeah.
So it is not banned in Germany, or it
From the
is?
same Wikipedia article, it says it's legal and allowed to operate.
Okay,
You
so
just-
so
but
they
it's-
don't
but it's not a
recognize it as a religion, so they allow the people a certain amount of freedom of expression. But
You probably don't get the tax benefits, right?
Right.
It's good. It's good.
They
So
have the same deal?
Scientology is one of those things. You ever have something that you kind of like never wanted to look into because you're afraid it's going to be bad?
Yeah.
So it's like I want to just keep liking Tom Cruise's movies.
Oh, Tom Cruise
So,
is great.
so I don't really want to know
Yeah, but
what's
Tom
up with
Cruise is-
Scientology. I always hear bad things.
He's crazy as fuck. Like, and all great actors are crazy as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
and that's just his crazy. His crazy is that he believes that if you see a car broke down the side of the road, you've got to go over and help them because you're a Scientologist, and that's what you do. Like, he's fucking super intense and dialed in, and he wants to do sit-ups as soon as you're done talking with him. Like, that's that guy. Like, he's fucking.
He's gonna help me with my car
He's
trouble.
like, all my friends that have met him, like, dude, the guy looks at you, he remembers your name. He's got like fucking laser beam shooting out of his eyeballs. Yeah. What does it say?
Oh, he's just part of the article.
You were talking about him?
He was
Oh,
there.
I thought you were
There
bringing
you
him up
go.
for something.
Okay.
Yeah, he's crazy, but so is Daniel Day-Lewis, right?
Yeah.
He's crazy in a different way.
guess.
Like, they're all Christian Bale. That guy's fucking crazy. You know, Russell Crowe. He throws cell phones at people that work behind the counter at a hotel if he doesn't like what they're saying. There are a lot of crazy people, brilliant actors.
Yeah.
It's just like he keeps his shit together with this weird thing,
religion.
weird religion. And have you ever read Going Clear, Lawrence
No,
Wright's book?
no.
Oh my God, it's amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The HBO documentary, the series, I think was more than one. But that's really good too. But the book is fantastic. Going
So do
Clear.
you have to be crazy like that to be successful in the podcast game? To get to the Rogan level?
No.
Do I need to become crazier?
No, well, I just started early. It's a dirty trick. It's a dirty trick. I'm an early adopter. I just made it through. You know, like there's probably a lot of people that make better cotton swabs than Q-tips, right? But Q-tip has been the name forever, right?
Sure.
So I got in '99 or 2009 rather. So that's a long ass time ago. 11 years of doing a podcast is a long fucking time. So
Absolutely.
that's the key.
Ground floor.
Yeah,
First
and
movie.
also just doing a lot of interviews.
Sure.
Yeah, just give people a lot of shit to listen to. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck.
Just kill him.
I
Kill him
don't
with
know.
quantity.
I don't know what has made this popular. I don't.
You should find out someday.
I don't want to know. I'll probably change it then.
Right.
Probably. I mean, I think if you pay attention too much to criticism or praise, you're going to fall victim to it in one way or another.
No, I mean that's true. I mean it's not healthy to worry too much about.
Too much. You
what
got to
other
worry a
people
little.
think.
You should think a little because you don't want to piss people off. You don't want to be annoying. And I think on both of those things sometimes. But it's also inevitable when you're just thinking out loud, right? Because this is where you and I, like, you could attest this. We had very little conversation before we got here.
Yeah, no, I did ask twice. I was like, "What are we going to talk about?" And everyone assured me they're like, "No, you just go in. You're just going to talk." So
It works.
It's real. It's true.
Yeah, it really does work though. Like, so that's what I want to hear. I want to hear a conversation between two people. I mean, I think interviews are interesting. I think debates are interesting. But what I genuinely like to do is have conversations with people. I just like to talk to people. It's fun. It's interesting. I want to know why you think the way you think, and especially this subject because I keep going on about how I think there's something about let's just go back to this rat population density
Okay.
thing. What they did was they took these rats. They put them in a large container, a large area, and they only had a couple of rats, and the rats just behaved like rats. And then as they ramped up, it mirrored essentially all of the problems you see in big cities. They started getting more violence. They started getting mentally ill rats that would literally sit in a corner and rock themselves back and forth, things that just didn't exist when there's small amounts of rats in a containment area. I think people react to the people that are around them in a very tangible way. And one of the things they used to demonstrate this is there was a very good Radio Lab podcast that talked about this, where they took cameras and they would put a camera on one end of the street and a camera on the other end of the street, and they would time people walking from one end to the other. So they would track their footsteps, and then through that, when they have a certain amount of data, they could accurately determine how many people live in the city just by how quickly someone moved from point A to point B. And that
So what big cities people walk faster?
They walk faster. Not only do
Oh,
they
good
walk
for us.
faster, they talk faster. So if you listen to someone if you listen to a certain amount of people form sentences, you can get a very accurate number, like really close to what population density or what the population of that area is, which is really interesting. Yeah, so there's a reaction that we have to each other. Too many people makes people walk faster and talk faster, and some people love that. And my friends that live in New York City that love it, one of the things they say is the city's got so much energy, so much energy. And I agree. You go there, you're like, wow, so much energy. But you're reacting to other biological entities, right? It's like there's weird things that happen with people when they're around other people. Like women, when they're around other women, get coinciding menstrual cycles, right? We don't really totally understand that. We know it's like pheromones and they're reacting to each other. I think there's strange things that are happening when people are around people. I think it's one of the reasons why podcasts in person are far better than podcasts through Zoom. Like, it's great to be able to talk to people that otherwise I couldn't talk to through that, but there's an impersonal, sort of disconnected, there's a magic that's missing.
Yeah, but so I'd like I'm more on that point, right? Like, there's great energy in person. I think that, the move to doing everything remotely because of the pandemic, I think has really hurt sort of like morale in a lot of institutions, harder for people to get along, harder for people to relate to each other. I also think when you look at innovation, right, like big, like, inventions, new ideas, new developments, they tend to come out of urbanized areas, right, where people are bouncing off each other, maybe like drinks after work, maybe at a party somewhere. People who, work broadly in the same field are just able to see each other and interact randomly, right? And that kind of energy generates a lot of, where our sort of growth comes from as a kind of a modern society. And there's nothing wrong with, people living in small towns, people living in the countryside. There's a lot of great stuff out there. Obviously, also we need food. Without farmers, we'd be kind of fucked as a society. But there's a reason why you see a trend toward urbanization over thousands and thousands of years. people trying to find more ways to have more interactions with each other. Because I think we're not rats ultimately, right? Like, you put those rats in the crowded thing, and like they don't invent shit. They're still rats.
Right, but you understand that the issue is
no, I mean, I see what you mean.
Negative aspects of overpopulation are represented in rat population.
Right. I mean, look, there's definitely more violence in big cities.
Yeah.
You see that really clearly. On the other hand, you do see better health outcomes in the contemporary United States in metro areas than you do in rural ones. I don't know exactly why that is, but it's
better
but it tells us
health
something.
outcomes in terms of response to hospitalization, or better health outcomes in terms of like the overall quality of life.
I mean, just
healthy...
like life expectancy, obesity, that kind
the
of
life
stuff.
expectancy is higher, like really in New York City than Boulder, Colorado. Is that real?
No, Colorado is actually number one. But in general, I mean,
But
New York,
Boulder only has 100,000 people.
Yeah, but New York and California are some of the highest life expectancy states in the country. The really low ones, West Virginia,
but
places
that's
like that.
extreme poverty.
Well, they're poor, but
Right.
that's
But
part of the
there's- but a lot
issue,
of
right? Like,
rural-
wealth comes out of, or maybe that'll change, right? Maybe we're going to have the technology that people can, and we're going to make some investments in broadband, other stuff like that. I mean, maybe we can have much more prosperity in rural areas, and like that would be great, because I mean, it would just be good for people there. Also, people like it. It'd be cool. I have some hope that all this Zoom and stuff will do that, but I also have some doubts. I mean, I'm just not sure that you can fully replicate the sort of value of in-person interaction, and it's just a way that I do think we're different.
The only way that's ever going to come about is through virtual reality. Virtual reality, if it gets to a point where you and I can put on goggles and be in a room together almost like this, that's pretty close.
Well, I
The
think
wait is over. One of the sport's most notorious icons is stepping in the octagon this Saturday. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the UFC, is offering new players a free shot to the test and to get a free for details.
Close.
Well, I think it's. I'm not quite technical enough to know what the problem is, but to me, the issue with all kinds of Zoom things, right? It's not the visual experience; it's the lags. Like the hardest thing for me as a professional talker about anything remote, not just video, right? You do
Just latency?
Yeah, the latency. It's hard. It's hard to have a conversation when you constantly worry about the timing and the
Well, you're talking-
interruptions
yeah.
and how that back and forth works. It's very unnatural. And I don't know, like if there's going to be a VR solution for that. Like I think that latency is a killer.
The latency is a killer, but the latency is not as bad if you have headphones on, if both of you have headphones on. The problem is oftentimes one person has speakers and the other person is using headphones, and when the one person is talking, the way Zoom works and Skype works, it's very difficult for you to hear the other person talking while you're talking. It sort of drowns everything out, and it fucks up. I've had some brutal conversations with people where they literally don't even hear what I'm saying. Like, they're saying something wrong. I'm like, wait. What are you saying? And they just keep going. I'm like, hold on. You can't. That's not real. Like, stop. And they're like, oh, Jesus. And then you realize, like, okay, they can barely hear me while they're talking. I can't really talk. Whereas, like, if you're talking and I'm like, what? And you hear it, it's like we're in the same room. We're also wearing headphones together, which is better than even being in the same room and not having headphones on, because your voice in my ears, like there's a couple times I've talked to you earlier where I realized it as I was doing it, I was like, oh, like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's just the thing of learning the rhythm of people communicating. But when the headphones, your voice is as loud as my voice, and it's at the same, it's right there in the ears. So it locks it in.
Well, and you're Italian, is that?
Mostly.
Yeah, and I'm Jewish mostly, and New York, New Jersey, and it's a stereotype. But like we're always talking over each other at
Yes.
dinner, family, and my wife, she's a waspy person, a little more reserved. And I think the first time she came home to see my family, she was like, "What's going on here?" Like, everybody's just yelling constantly. But to me, it's a very natural way to communicate.
Yeah.
To have a little overlap,
Yeah.
right? And part of being human is like understanding those cues. And when you intersperse the technology, right, and the latency and the lags in there, it's a very different experience. And like professional interviewers figure out how to do it, because they're pros, but it's not normal.
Yeah, you have to work with it, and it's difficult. And oftentimes, professional interviewers, they actually use that to talk over each other. Like if you're watching CNN, if there's opposing viewpoints, oftentimes these fucking anchors just talk over people, and they don't let the person get their point out. And they also know that they only have 7 minutes, and they're also working towards a soundbite. As much as they're having a conversation, they're probably more likely setting traps or anticipating outcomes and working towards some sort of gotcha moment. And it's not a conversation.
And they tell you if you get, I've gotten media training to go on cable, right? And what they tell you is before you go on cable, because you're only going to be on there for a couple minutes, you decide what you want to say. right? You distill it to a few quick talking points, and you just make sure to say that no matter what question you get asked.
Okay.
And that's training. That's the advice they give to the pundits, the talking heads who go on, the politicians who come on. You know, in like worst case, you say, well, you know, Wolf, I think the real issue is, and then boom, you just do your talking points. And that's terrible. Like, it's a terrible product. You know,
Yeah.
like you watch those shows and you are not learning anything.
Fully express what they think. So I want to find out why they think that way. So I want to think the way they're thinking. So if they start saying something like, "Oh yeah, so you feel like we should do it this way,"
You're trying to draw it out.
Yes.
You're trying to explicate.
I'm also
what's
trying to
going on.
learn. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it from their perspective. Like sometimes people will say things, and I had an idea of what I believed before I started talking to them, and then they start talking, and I go, "Oh, ooh, that makes sense. I get it now." And maybe I did have a different opinion a week ago, but I'm not married to my opinions. When you're on those fucking cable shows, you have to be married to your opinions. You're just talking over each other, and it's so many gotcha moments. It's just gross. If I ever had someone over my house and they talk to me like that, I'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Well, what I
don't wanna
hate
talk to
about
you
it
like
is
that.
you put you on like that, right? And so you're supposed to be repping your team,
Yeah.
right? And so if you actually are thoughtful, right? If you ever concede that the other perspective might have some merit,
Yeah.
or that you don't have all the answers,
Right.
then you're taking the L for your team.
Right.
And I don't ever want to be in that position, right? That's not interesting as a thinker, as a writer, as a host, to just be out there as a cog in the machine
I couldn't agree more.
playing a role. It's boring. I mean, the world is a complex place. I change my thinking about things a lot because, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, but I like to think it's
No.
because
You're
it's like
thinking.
stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And like you want to live and participate in the world of ideas, not as like a combat sport.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you argue with people. You get passionate about things sometimes, but the idea is to learn, to persuade, to become smarter, to help your audience become smarter, and that's not about trying to beat the other guy into submission.
Right.
But so much, I mean, really on television, media is constructed like this like spectacle,
Yeah.
and I'm not above in other arenas. Like it's amazing to just like watch two sports teams go at it and see who's gonna win. See
It's
who's gonna-
stupid.
who's score the most points, but for like ideas, it's dumb.
Yeah, it's stupid to do that with conversations, and I do agree. It's fun to watch people do that with sports. It's exciting, but sports are a different animal. It's a different thing. I think conversations are missing from media. We don't have conversations. The only way they have conversations is if it's an echo chamber, and it's two people like Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo agreeing on something, and they have something and they agree about, and they talk. That's a conversation, sort of.
Sure.
But even that's bullshit because it's pre-planned out, and they've gone over what they're going to say in advance. You know, they're not just talking about things. And I also think that most ideas or like an idea that's controversial, like your idea of 1 billion Americans. Like this is an idea that I think should be expressed in a long-form conversation because it's the best way to look at all your perspectives and see why you. And I think like right away, my perspective was I don't think that that's a good idea because that's too many people. But I see what you're saying, and I listen to what you're saying, and I go, oh okay.
How many people do you want?
I don't think there's a number. I don't have a number, but I am pro-immigration. You know,
Yeah.
I think. Listen, I would be incredibly hypocritical if I was anti-immigration. I love a lot of immigrants. I know a lot of immigrants because I know a lot of fighters. Because a lot of people from the UFC, a lot of them are immigrants. I'm grateful that they're here. I'm grateful that my grandparents had an opportunity to be here. I think this is an amazing place. I'm pro-America as an idea. I think the idea of American people, the idea of this melting pot, the idea of this place that is, in quotes, the land of opportunity. This is what people think. When you say the land of opportunity, if you're on Jeopardy, what is America? It's not what is China. You know, it's not, right? It's,
So let me
it's
ask you:
this
when you decided you wanted to leave Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's traffic, big city, high taxes in California. I don't know exactly, but there's a lot of places you can go. So Austin is interesting. I mean, this is a place a lot of people have been moving to. Mid-sized city, but it's a city. This is urban. You know, you could have been like a solo.
I've done that before. The problem is I have a family. Yeah. They're not interested in that. If it was me, I'd be on that.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I'd have a fat internet cable. I'd have hire someone to drill through the ground to whatever the fucking nearest point is, and I'd be on a mountain.
You just-
not that I don't like people, but I really, really like nature. I mean, I like to go. But the thing is, like, outside of the pandemic, my job involves enormous groups of people together, right? I'm a stand-up comedian, and I do these giant places where there's thousands of people, and then I do the UFC, so I do commentary, and there's thousands of people.
Yep.
That shit's overwhelming sometimes. And then there's millions of people that listen to the podcast. That shit's overwhelming sometimes too. And the antidote for that, for me, is nature. And so to be in a place where I can see mountains and I can just hear birds and I can see trees, that makes me feel good. It's a nice
I
feeling.
was never a nature person, and then because of the pandemic, so much stuff, not anymore, but back in March, April, so much stuff was closed. Everything was closed in DC. And I got a 5-year-old, and it was like we had to do something. So we started going every Saturday. I would drive him someplace, and we go hikes. You know, like really like easy level ones because I'm fucking out of shape. The kid's 5. You know, what can we do? But it was like the first time I ever really was like doing that stuff. And I think it's like the one thing that I will take away from this COVID era is like I finally get it, right? That
Oh,
it
that's
does.
great.
It helps reboot
Yeah.
my mind.
Oh, yeah.
To just kind of walk around some trees and
Yeah.
look at a river.
Hey
kinda
man,
rolling around.
that's how we evolved. There's certain, like, you ever caught a fish? You ever go fishing?
I have, yeah.
When you catch a fish, there is a weird thing that's going on in your brain that is ancient. It's ancient. And even though like fishing tackle is very modern, using a spin casting reel, and you got monofilament line and these hooks that have been designed and engineered, and you're pulling in this fish. There's something about catching a fish that ignites a primal part of whatever it is that whatever part of you that's left over from back when this was the only way you were going to survive is if you caught a fish. And it was probably when you were catching it with a net or with a stick or whatever the fuck they figured out how to use back then, or ancient hooks. That part gets ignited because it's a part of what we are. Also, part of what we are is we lived in nature. Like humans always lived in nature until X amount of thousands of years ago. Agriculture and cities and condensed living, and people were tribal and they stuck together and they were mostly hunters and gatherers. That shit is in our DNA and it's very hard to get out, and I don't think you can. And as a grown adult, I think one of the things we should do is recognize that we have some requirements, and one of the requirements is to be around nature. Like there's a physical requirement, and you feel like a better person, you feel like a better version of yourself when you can go on a hike in the mountains.
I can tell you, when I went fishing, I just felt weird. But exactly what you said. That's how I feel. These days, everybody in DC has got fire pits for our backyards. So we can hang out at night. And that's how I feel anytime we get a fire together. I learned as a little kid, like how to build a campfire at summer camp, that kind of thing. It never comes up, like in real life, because who cares? But you do it, and you're like, oh, this is the real life survival skills. This is like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And I do get that. Like that's something cool.
Yeah, but that's another fire is in your DNA. There's something beautiful about starting a fire. I was on a hunting trip once in Alaska, Prince of Wales Island, and it's one of the rainiest parts on Earth. It rains there basically every day. It's the entire trip is just you're soaked. Doesn't matter if you're in a sleeping bag, in a tent. The sleeping bag is filled.
That sounds terrible.
There's water vapor everywhere.
Okay,
so like
I'm not going there.
nothing is ever dry. There's nothing ever dry. But there was one night where it didn't rain for like 6 or 7 hours, and we figured out how to start a fire. And we actually for the entire evening until like early in the morning, it didn't start raining again. So we used corn chips, like Fritos corn chips. Those things are like super flammable, and they stay lit for a long time. So we figured out that we could light corn chips on fire and then slowly dry out these sticks and get them flammable, and then take some wood from some areas where it doesn't get direct rain on it, and like underneath it was kind of dry. And we gathered together some wood, and then once we got the fire going, then we put the wet stuff on there and it dried it out and burnt, and we got a fire going.
That's probably not good news about eating food.
I don't know if it's bad news. I mean, there's a lot of things that are flammable that taste good. It's not good for you. But the point is, this fire was like a drug. Like all of a sudden we had this fire, and we're like, oh, it was amazing. And the spirits, everyone's spirits went elevated. Everybody was much happier. And we were warm already. We had merino wool and down puffy coats on, so we stayed warm.
Yeah.
But there was something about that fire that like it let us know, like it was hope.
Yeah, it's the meaning of like warmth and community
Yes.
and safety, right?
And
Like,
fun
you got-
stories. Like then you're around the fire and everybody's telling funny stories and everyone's laughing and we had a great time. But there's a DNA aspect to it. There's a part of you that recognizes that this fire is one of the things that kept human beings alive, kept away predators, kept away the enemy. Like we got a fire going. Like we're alive now. And you're like yes, success. Like a fish. You catch yours. Oh, here we go. We got one. There's an exciting thing. Even if it's a weird thing that people do, this catch and release. There's a lot of fly fishermen. All they basically want to do is just go out there and the way people describe it accurately is you're kind of just fucking with the fish, because you're not you're not fishing in the sense as you're providing your family with
Yeah.
food and sustenance. No, you're just
feelings.
catching it and letting it go. But they want that thrill, like, oh, I got it. That thrill, and then they're like, I'll let you live. Go
It's
ahead.
true. It's funny. You wouldn't. I guess the fish are glad not to.
It's like shooting an animal with a tranquilizer dart. Like, I got you, bitch. Take a
Yeah.
picture with a moose when it's out cold, and like you shot him with a dart. That's horrible.
Do
You
people
never
do that?
No.
No. Okay.
Well,
It sounds weird.
biologists do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
No. I understand.
Yeah,
But it's
and usually they don't do that with anything other than predators. With other animals, they actually net them. They drop, like if they want to tag a mule deer or something like that, they actually drop a net from a helicopter on them.
it's also weird.
Well, it's weird because they can fall and break their leg, and then you got to kill them. But that's the only way they can actually figure out. Like through that, they figured out how these things, what the range is.
Yeah.
how far
Yeah.
they travel.
And they got it.
Yeah, they get data.
Trying
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on.
But there's something about fishing that ignites these feelings in people, and there's something about hiking. Like when you're around trees, it's like your body goes, oh, it's like a level of homeostasis occurs. Just like there's sort of a balancing feeling.
There's a relaxation.
Yeah, you're supposed to be around trees.
But I wouldn't discourage people from listening to podcasts and they're busy hectic.
No, I wouldn't
You
discourage
gotta
people.
keep the business alive.
There's nothing wrong with doing a lot of things that are like going to the movies or going to a concert. Like all these things have nothing to do with nature.
I miss going to the movies.
I miss going to concerts. I miss,
Concerts are good.
yeah, I miss large groups of people getting together and not worrying about dying.
Yes,
You
that
know,
would be good.
like even you and I when we saw each other, like hey, how often you been tested?
Yep.
Like, what's up?
No,
And then we got to
it's-
test you, and then as soon as we know we're clear, then we can hang out. Don't
It's
worry
very
about
weird. I was on an airplane, and it's just the most. Other people's anxiety is like bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
It's like
You can feel
I
it.
don't believe in like panpsychism or anything like that, but that's what it feels like. You know, it's like you can tell everybody's on edge, everybody's nervous, and you know, planes are always like that. I mean, that's never like the human experience. At its finest.
How do they eat on planes? They let you take your mask down and you eat?
They do.
That's nonsense.
But then everybody's looking at you, and also it doesn't make sense. I mean, this could be a
No,
whole
it
other
doesn't
show,
make
but yeah, I mean, obviously the snacks don't have like a magic antiviral properties, right? Like
Right.
if the mask is important, which you know the doctors say it is, then also, I mean, you know, it's not that long to flight. You can survive with this mask.
I know, but to ask people to fly for 5 hours with no food, they're like, what? I need to eat all the time.
You know, it's so boring being on an airplane, and that's just what people want to do. Is like sit there and snack.
Yeah.
I was trying to read a book, be like a
Smart guy.
well, it was like a Jack Reacher book. So,
Oh, really?
so not that
Oh,
smart.
that's funny. Tom Cruise played Jack Reacher.
He did, yes. It all circles back around.
Yeah.
I love those books,
The
but
movie was not that good.
no, the movie was not
The
good.
second one's supposed to be even worse.
Yeah, but there's gonna be a new Amazon series.
Why are you laughing? I love him. I love Tom
The
Cruise.
character, you know Jack
Just
Reacher
honest,
character.
yes,
He's
yes.
supposed to be a giant guy,
Right, exactly.
so it can't be fucking Tom Cruise.
Right, right.
I like
yeah.
Tom Cruise, but
Doesn't work.
that's like the little guy. He's scrappy.
Exactly.
That's an interesting character too.
And after
Yeah,
what you've
it's-
done,
yeah.
I'm going to enjoy
Doesn't
it.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the little guy that's scrappy. It's supposed to be like The Rock. It's
yeah,
supposed to be,
that's
yeah.
the dream. Just
Yeah.
like a giant guy.
Yeah.
The book, he's always like Lee Child's always writing about how huge his hands are.
Yeah.
And I respect that as a somewhat small-handed person. It's like,
Yeah, how the fuck did they get Tom Cruise to play a huge-handed
Nobody
guy?
was into it. But
That's probably why it didn't work, though,
the
right?
new book, the author, Lee Child handed off to his little brother to start writing the series.
Oh, no.
And
Is that like Gallagher, too?
yeah.
That kind of situation? There you go. Oh, Dwayne Johnson explains losing Jack Reacher role and why what does he say? Is he mad?
He's supposed to be him though.
Well, that fucking makes sense. Dwayne Johnson, when you meet him, doesn't even seem like a real human. You're like, oh, look at this fucking superhero.
Yeah, that's
click on that link. What does it say there?
Other one you have to-
That's a large individual.
Could have been timing. Maybe he had another role to do. You know.
Say it again. Go back. Go back to the top. What does it say?
It was just
Yeah, it says lose out. Okay. Loses to Tom Cruise.
No, there he is on Twitter.
Love the character. About 10 years ago, I went for the role, but Cruise got it. It was great motivation for me to always stay hungry. That's a really nice way of saying I would have fucked that movie up.
Huh.
Yeah. Who makes the better action star, Cruise or Johnson? That's not a good question.
No, that's not the right way to think about it.
Yeah.
But it's who's right for the part.
Yeah, Cruise is not right for the part. The part doesn't
you know, the
work.
other thing, you imagine The Rock in like Top Gun,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, because you're not going to be a fighter pilot. That sucks, right? Like, there's a.
Exactly. Fighter pilots are small. Yeah, it's like, you know, Rock Lee, the greatest jockey of all time.
that poor fucking horse.
I know. He's like, what? Wait, hold on. How big's this goddamn horse? Those big horses don't run that fast. This is stupid.
That would be
Yeah.
terrifying. The Rock sitting on a giant horse.
Yeah, there's some guys that are just born for roles. Like Keanu Reeves is born for John Wick. He's the perfect John Wick. Even though Keanu Reeves is not a physically imposing guy, I mean, even when in the movie, like he's got his shirt off, he's showering, it doesn't look like The Rock's back. It's not like you're like, oh my god, look at the size of this guy, he's gonna kill everybody. But there's something about Keanu's demeanor and the way he plays that role, like he fucking nails it. It's perfect.
He's got this flat affect, but you can tell he loves the dog.
Yeah.
And
you can believe that he can
loves
kill
his
all those
wife.
people.
And
When he's
it's
killing
for
all those
real.
people, I believe it.
yeah, he's intense. He
Yeah.
dials in.
Yeah,
in
it
like
works.
A cool way.
It works. There's some roles that just don't work.
Please.
So you're listening, you're reading Jack Reacher, rather. You're reading this book, and people are freaking out. And you freak out too, because you're feeling people freaking out. And so it's hard to concentrate on the book.
It's just a ton of bad news these days. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. It's like, I think my opinion that this pandemic is bad is like not that interesting, but it's. I honestly like have not had a chance to really reflect on it until I was there at the airport, sitting around, because it's like I've been to that airport a million times in normal reality, and you recognize things, but they're so surreal. Everybody's
You sick fuck!
nervous.
This is what you get, you fucking piece of
You know,
shit!
who knows? Like we should all watch it.
It's over. It's finally
Shut up! All those
I
people,
will be
children, I will rip your
You know,
fucking
people-
heart out!
like how
You won't get out of it
people
that
are
easily!
gonna be really excited to like get back out to the club.
I won't let
have
you!
fun, go to shows, have just like
wanted you.
parties.
In a couple of years.
I think things are gonna like. I think 2021 is gonna be like the craziest year.
Maybe. I think by the end of 2021, things are going to be rocking. I think 2022 is really when things are going to really take
That's your,
off.
that's your rocking year.
It's not my perspective really either. It's Nicholas Christakis, who is a professor at Yale, wrote a book about the pandemic called Apollo's Arrow. And he and I talked about it. And it's one of the things that he thinks is that once the vaccine kicks in, and then there'll be this time that'll be like the Roaring '20s, which is coincidentally a couple years after the Spanish flu had ended.
Yep.
And it'll be sort of a similar type situation.
But that's just interesting. Like, is it coincidental?
Well, coincidentally, sort of. No. I mean, with us,
Right.
that it's not coincidentally. Like the relationship is very similar.
Yeah.
Basically, probably the same impetus, the same reason. I mean, people were locked up for a year or so, and it was a far more disturbing pandemic because it was killing really young, healthy people with powerful immune systems. Their immune system was actually attacking them. That was a really scary, dangerous time for this country, and the bounce back was appropriately wild, right? The Roaring '20s, where that's a wild ass time.
And roared. And now
Yeah.
we got 20s again.
Well, now, I think when 2021 rolls around, and whether it's a vaccine or maybe there will be some therapeutic that makes people not have to take the vaccine, or there's something that they figure out where, like if you get syphilis, you get penicillin and wax it out. Like you don't have to take a syphilis vaccine, whatever it is.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I like vaccines. You know,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I like vaccines. I
mean,
am
not everybody does,
vaccinated.
I know.
The problem that a lot of people have is that this was fast-tracked, and they get nervous about
They do. They do.
possible potential side effects, and we don't know what those are going to be. And then there's a lot of people that are very uncomfortable with the idea of getting very sick after they take the vaccine, which seems to happen with 80% of the people that take it, and so they're concerned about that.
Wait,
Even-
80% of people who are taking this vaccine?
Yes.
That's not what I heard.
Well, that's what Bill Gates has said.
Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know
Wanna
if we,
see
I
it?
don't know if we can look it up.
We'll play it for you.
Go-
Pull it off of. I
yeah.
know it's weird when people say that. People are like, wait, what? It's on my Instagram. There's an interview with Bill Gates where he's talking about. I believe this is the Moderna vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
The Pfizer vaccine has a very similar effect because it's
mRNA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. I mean, it's messenger RNA,
Yeah.
but I don't know what it means. So
which
you
just
know,
means that it's not giving you like a dormant version.
right.
Of
So
COVID.
there's no virus, right? There's a particle that's specially designed. It triggers antibodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We create them.
looks like
And so
it
I think the
started
basic
without us.
antibody immune response situation
Let's get
is
moving.
fairly well understood scientifically. It's why we're pretty confident that the people who recovered, are immune. That younger and healthier people in most cases are okay. If they get sick, they get better. So to me, like, it's a good thing. I'm all for it. I'll take it. I'll get the fever. But I'm also not. I want to walk the line. Like, I want to encourage people to take vaccines, like as a responsible person. But also knowing that the supplies will be short. If somebody doesn't want it, like, somebody else will take that dose.
You know what? One of the best things in terms of outcomes is vitamin D. Like vitamin D deficiencies are a huge part of negative COVID outcomes. And in this
I've
study,
seen some people,
one-
some studies about that. Yeah.
in one study, 84% of the people that were in the ICU had deficient levels of vitamin C, and only 4% had sufficient levels of vitamin D. Vitamin D is a huge problem, and it's not just a vitamin; it's a hormone. When Mac was on the other day, he was trying to say that it's a precursor to hormones. So I had to look it up. That's not true. It's a hormone. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it's weird because we call it a vitamin, but it regulates so many things in the body, and it has a significant impact on the immune system. But you never
Yeah,
hear anybody
good
telling you
boy.
to supplement with vitamin D. You're not seeing this from any of the leaders, any of these politicians that are shutting things down. Even Fauci has said it recently that vitamin D does seem to have a pretty significant impact. But health experts, like people that study like the mechanisms of disease and
find
vitamin
this kid.
supplementation, like particularly
doing enough
Dr. Ron
already.
Patrick had a thing on her Twitter where she published a study that showed positive outcomes in COVID. Vitamin D is a huge factor. Are you supplementing with vitamin D?
I am, yes. I mean, I
much
don't
do you
want
take?
to, I don't know, just like one of those things. But I also, the thing I try to do, I try to make sure I'm going outside, like we were talking about before. I mean, I am not super read in on the vitamin D science, but I have heard this, and it also seems like a situation where there's no possible harm, right?
Can't say I
with what?
blame them.
Taking some vitamin D.
No, of
right?
course, yes.
And being
Prove 'em
cautious,
wrong,
and you
buddy.
do
Oh,
see that the
Mrs. Lanning.
populations where
Lovely
we've had the
woman.
biggest problems, right? So if you think about nursing homes or you think about prisons, right? You're talking about populations that, for different reasons, obviously if you're in prison, you're in prison, but are not having, outside time and exposure to sunlight, right? And the natural vitamin D
But they're also
mechanisms
prisons are jammed up.
that
with
come
people.
that way.
They have no way of avoiding each other.
Right. Well, yes. And I mean, I do think that there's concern there. I mean, I've
found it. We're
heard
not
a
leaving
fair
that
amount
anyone
of vitamin D
Right, boy?
supplementation, at least from our local public health people in DC. I don't know.
Really?
If,
That's interesting.
I don't know if Fauci or whomever else
Well,
has been
Los
vocal on
Angeles, you
this.
don't hear a peep about it.
I mean, what they don't.
it's
I mean, they
significant.
don't have double blind. What do you call it? Clinical
Placebo-controlled
trials.
studies.
Which I guess.
How
One
would
of the things that we've seen, I mean, obviously it's important to do those kind of studies, but I do think that one thing we've seen throughout this pandemic is doctors are a little too hesitant to draw conclusions based on lower quality studies when that's the best evidence that's available. You know what I mean? It's like
Well, these
when
aren't
you have a
lower-
problem,
hold on.
you
These
want to
aren't lower quality studies that indicate that vitamin D is good for your immune system. What it's saying is that there's no way to do double-blind, placebo-controlled studies on vitamin D with people with COVID. You'd have to give them COVID. Like,
Right.
It's a real issue, right? But what they are showing is that people with significant levels of vitamin
Sorry,
D,
Anthony.
people that have sufficient levels of
First
vitamin
come,
D,
first
have
served.
overall,
Yeah,
the
I'll
percentage
call
of people
Lanning
that have
what's
a better
in it
outcome
for.
is huge.
Right.
84% is a big number.
Right.
When you look at the number of
Ready as
people that
I'll
have
ever be.
insufficient levels that wind up in COVID units.
the woods then.
When you're looking at what vitamin D does, that's well understood. Its impact on the immune system. It's weird to me that people don't take care of their health and don't actively make conscious decisions to make their body healthier, but are relying only on science to come along and give them something. Give them a medicine, give them a vaccine, give them a thing. When there's so much evidence that shows that you can significantly increase your chances for a good outcome if you do
on,
catch
boy.
this disease, and maybe even
go find this
possibly
kid.
ward off catching it with a stronger immune system. But yet, so many people aren't doing that.
Well, and that's something we know about health in general, right? Is that we have what doctors do, what pharmaceutical companies do, what hospitals do. Is we're glad that exists, right? But that the biggest levers for population health are in infectious diseases and keeping health, right? Not
But also, we can create vaccines, which are tremendously important. The reason why we don't have immune system.
vaccines are great. I mean, obviously for the childhood dose, right? One thing that's unusual is that it doesn't and God bless, right? That's keeping people safe. And so that's good. You're seeing death rates plummet when vaccines come in for these other childhood
Right,
ailments,
sure.
And it's a huge favor because you're not going to tell a 2-year-old like, hey buddy, you got to work out more.
My point is, I think we can both agree that vaccines are hugely important for health results. It's hugely important to ward off diseases. I'm a big proponent of vaccines, but there's other things that people can do to benefit their health as well. And it's just weird to me that people put all their faith in these one things, but don't do the things that would require some discipline and maybe some changing
point in
of the
waiting
structure
any
of how
longer.
they live their life.
It's called
That,
landing.
to me, is bizarre.
No, I mean I
The
agree with
note
you.
said to use
It's
channel
hard,
2.
but
It's hard.
it's hard to
What-
be
what's
disciplined.
Ellis to base.
But if you don't want to
Copy.
die,
No, it's good. It is important to try to do.
have you done anything differently during
joining
the
the
pandemic
search
where you
party.
made conscious decisions to try to be healthier?
Yeah, I mean, look, I said, I started doing outside stuff. I've been trying really hard to like take up running because it's something you can do outside of the gym.
gotta be careful
It's
with
healthy. But you know,
Bad for your
Sir.
joints when you're
I'm here to
running,
help.
not used to it. Your body's
That's
heavy.
all there is
yeah,
to it.
yeah. I mean, it is.
Bullets with me.
And
If he catches the scent,
what can I
he'll
say?
go
Like,
straight to the kid.
I am one of the many Americans who does not do as much as they should to like be a healthy person. And it's a big problem, like in our society. You know, like Americans, we have
Sir,
one of the richest, most
I'm
technologically
not gonna screw this
advanced,
up.
societies
Not
that exist
this
out there, but our population health is not great, primarily because of what we eat and the amount of physical exercise that we do. And I
Roger
think
that.
in our
Over
lives
now.
and in our politics, it's not the subject of enough emphasis
Well,
because it's less
time to get to work.
comfortable than kind of hoping for pharmaceutical breakthroughs.
Right.
Although fortunately we are getting some pharmaceutical breakthroughs, it looks like. From
Right,
this-
I'm not picking on you, but
No, you
you
should.
understand
I'm
that
just
the
making
way people would criticize this is they would look at you and look at the choices that you made and say, "This is crazy. This guy just wants to get a shot in the arm and doesn't want to do the other things that could significantly impact your health." You don't want you've decided to, for whatever reason, just
Yeah,
say,
you
"I'm
know,
going to
buddy.
get this shot and then I'm going to be good." Whereas there's
Yeah.
a lot of evidence that shows that you can increase your
Bullet.
health. Like, what would have to happen?
you should do
you
both
think,
of those
for people-
things.
Right, but why don't you?
Why don't I?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm weak. I'm
Zeke,
weak.
You're not weak. Don't say that. You can decide you're weak. If you had to, if you knew that your life was in danger,
Yeah,
you could
not
do some
the
pretty
search
incredible
party,
things.
buddy.
But you're comfortable, you're relaxed, and you're pretty sure that's going to be taken care of with this vaccine.
You know, the hardest thing that I ever did health-wise is I used to be a heavy smoker, which is obviously
look around,
terrible
boy.
for you.
How many packs a day?
I was smoking like a pack and a half a day, and my mother died of cancer. No, not lung, but she also smoked, and likely related. When I was young, when I was in my early 20s,
Was it pancreatic?
She was in her. I think so.
That's a big one.
Yeah, she was in her 50s. So, like it was terrible, and I finally, and then they changed the laws, about like smoking in bars and stuff like that. It was like a little like kick in the butt
Well,
to like actually try
did say
to
I'd call.
get my shit together.
How old were you
in
when you
that
quit?
regard. 26, 27.
was
So it would have been like 12 years ago. And it was like, it was so fucking hard, I mean, I did
Hey,
it, right?
Jess,
And lots of people,
congratulations.
I got
lots
your
of people have
message.
quit smoking over the
Yeah.
years. But something that was helpful is that at that time
Yeah.
in the history
Not
of our
much luck so
society,
far.
it was becoming kind of stigmatized.
But hey,
like
these
you couldn't
bullets
smoke
happy we're
anymore
out of the
in a bar or
house.
restaurant. They were getting rid of like the smoking sections in
Jess,
airports and stuff. So already before I quit, it was like I knew I was out there, like
I'm
on
sorry
the
about
margins,
earlier.
like standing outside in the cold.
You know how
pouring
important
rain,
this is to
being
me.
like, what am I doing? Like this addict, right? Like I should get it together. And so it was hard. It was hard to quit. It was hard to stay away from friends
Yeah.
and people doing that kind of
Thanks,
thing.
Jess.
But society, like it was better. Like my life was
Yeah, so
Will
you're
do.
not a weak person. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Well, we
Quitting
do.
smoking is one of the hardest things to do. It's a really hard thing to quit. And they've engineered it so that those goddamn things are really hard to quit. Have you ever seen that Russell Crowe movie, The Inside?
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know how much of that is accurate because I'm just basing it off that movie, but from the things that I've read, the articles about, like they researched the actual chemicals they're putting into cigarettes when they're making that movie, and it's based on a real scientist who actually was working for the tobacco companies, he was worried about his life because he was testifying about these chemicals that they're putting into these cigarettes that make them even more addictive than just regular cigarettes. Like if you take like American Spirits or one of those home rolled cigarettes you can make, those are bad, but they're not as bad.
Yeah. Well, you know what was actually the best thing for my health about this pandemic was just working from home. Because I used to work in one of those offices where they would have like snacks in the office, and I hate it. I mean, I loved it, but I hate it. And I always wanted to say like why do we have M&Ms in the office? Like
Right.
now, some people can just walk between the men's room and a stack of M&Ms and their desk all day, every day, and not stuff their face with M&Ms. I was not succeeding with that. But I never find myself sitting in my basement being like, what I ought to do right now is stop working, go walk 3 blocks to the store, buy a bunch of M&Ms, and eat a bunch of sugar and gross low quality chocolate.
What
Like
if at
nobody
your-
does that.
What if at your job they had stacks of cigarettes?
There you go. No, that would be terrible, right? Like,
Did you walk past those while you were trying to quit?
that would be so
Got a
bad.
little smoking patio, you could see it. It's right there. I go through those gates.
Terrible.
Freedom.
Terrible. And it's like we were talking about on the airplane, right? Even in the middle of the pandemic, they're like, you gotta wear your mask, Oh, but here's the snacks.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not natural.
There's some
to eat
cognitive
like that.
dissonance involved in this whole thing. In LA, you can't do anything, but in Texas, you can go to restaurants. You wear a mask until you sit down, and then when you sit down, you don't have a mask anymore. But we're all breathing the same air.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, I think HEPA filters and doing things that they can to prevent people from showing up at work sick, whether it is a COVID test for all your employers. I have a friend who owns a restaurant. She's implementing that and trying to do COVID tests for everybody that works there.
Well, what they should have done was make testing much more of it. much more broad, much more widespread.
But you don't understand it's complicated. It's like it's not that they shouldn't have done it. It's like they didn't have a test for it, and then they developed a test, and then implementing that test on a large scale requires an infrastructure that wasn't available.
No, I know, but they didn't like. So the FDA, right, has not been moving aggressively with the testing devices that are out there, right? They have this
You know, a lot of them aren't accurate. That's one of the reasons.
diagnostic mentality.
Yeah.
No, I know. But you know, when like some universities, because they have their own lab infrastructure, you know, have gone really big on testing their students, and it's worked pretty well. And then others haven't, and it's it's college kids in dorms and
Yeah.
partying, and spreads a lot of disease around. And I don't know. I mean, this has not been our
Nothing
greatest
there,
year
huh?
as a country.
No, it hasn't. We weren't prepared. I think one good thing that may come out of this, if there's any good thing that will come out of this, is that in the future, if another pandemic arises, we'll be much better prepared for it. I think we'll be more accustomed to the idea, and people will take precautionary steps quicker than they did back in April.
And I definitely own more little HEPA air purifying machines
Yeah,
than I used to.
we got one over there. And it's just masks and stuff. People, they understand they can get them. I mean, one of the more unfortunate things that happened was Fauci told people not to wear masks, and the masks aren't going to help you. And the reason why he did that is because he didn't want people buying masks and them not being available for first responders. Obviously, the problem with that is now you know that they're willing to lie if they think it's within everybody's best interest, if they tell you something that's not true. And the problem with that is, of course, then everybody's like, well, what the fuck? And now, how do I know when to believe you? Like, don't believe me back then, because I only said it back then because I didn't want you to buy them all up. But now that they're available everywhere, yes, you have to wear
But I
them.
really hope they do, and I don't think they'll do it. But the military does an after-action report on something. You look back, not to point fingers, not to be mad, but to like try to understand what did we do, what worked, what didn't work, what do we do next time. And the public health expert community really needs to do that because some of this stuff, I think that's what happened with the masks, but like we don't really know. And there's got to be an
What do you mean, like, you think that's what happened with the mask in what way?
like I think that they were concerned about shortages.
Oh, they were.
and
That's
that,
what Fauci said.
and that's why they came up with this.
No,
But it's like,
Fauci has literally said
yeah, no, but it's like we need everybody, the Surgeon General, the CDC, like everybody's got to get alignment. So like, what happened here? Why did we tell people this?
Right.
Why didn't we listen to the Asian health experts who dealt with a more similar virus and what was going on, and like how are we going to do better next time? Because you're right, just coming out and being like, oh no, trust us next time, like that doesn't work. That's not how anything goes. And you need some real searching self-criticism around some of that. And us in the media, there was a lot of credulity about those kind of statements when they didn't really make sense, right? Just like logically. I remember a tweet from the Surgeon General, and he said like in one tweet, "Oh, you don't need
not
to go buy
this way.
masks. They're not gonna be helpful to you. Also, we have shortages for healthcare workers." And so
what the fuck
when
does that
somebody
mean?
says something like that, right? It's like us in journalism, right? You're supposed to be saying,
hey,
"Hey, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, it
What's
doesn't.
going on?" And the most reliable source of information at that time was just people living in Asia. People living in Hong Kong, in Taiwan. They had much better information over there. They were broadcasting it. And if you listened at that time, you would know about masks. You would know about the efficacy of quarantines. You would know about aerosolization and ventilation and stuff like that. And we were just really slow and got to be smart.
Come here.
Yeah, it's not. It definitely was not our finest hour, like you said. One thing that I think we got to really talk about, Jamie, we wanted to talk about this before. There's a thing that's going around that it's a video clip that's been edited, and it's edited to make it seem like Bill Gates is saying that he's pushing this vaccine because it's extremely profitable, and that there's a 20 times the amount you put in, you benefit from it financially.
Doesn't look
That is
related,
not what he's saying.
but
This is really
never
important.
know.
What he's saying is, in vaccinating people and preventing illness, the health benefits to the economy overall has a tremendous impact in a positive manner, and is explaining this with third world countries and with other, and he's talking about it purely from a humanitarian perspective. He's not talking about it from this profiteering, like, vulture perspective.
it's a
like,
social
yes,
profit,
yes.
right? This
He's
is what
saying
we
it.
brought.
You would not, like, and it's really disingenuously edited, and it was passed around to a lot of people. And I watched the video, and I was like, who would fucking say that? What is he, crazy? Like, why would he describe it like this publicly?
Yeah.
He didn't. It's not what he was saying. It's edited. What he was saying is, when you vaccinate people and prevent these diseases, let's hear it just because it's really important, because a lot of people have sent this to me and they need to hear this. Is it not working? We're here. Do you have a Mac? Doesn't it show it in your bar where you can rewind it?
Not this one.
Oh, you got a cheap ass bullshit, man.
Well, I don't have the brand new one with that
Oh,
bar.
just refresh the page. Okay, here, go play it here.
Well,
You kind of
I
look
guess
at the
you
problem
can
from
consider
a
it a clue
scientific
in
and
some
business perspective
case.
on things. You've
It's
invested
not
$2 billion
ours.
in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that. And it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
You see a phenomenal track record. It's been $100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion. But we feel it's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else. So, we're here
See if you
with
can
a
find
strong
something,
message that although all these other issues are very important, let's not forget about the great success in global health and maintaining that commitment.
I think the numbers that you ran through were if you had put that money into an S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends, you'd come up with something like $17 billion, but you think it's 200. Put something recently.
Okay, so this is
Oh,
the,
yeah,
no,
so
no, no,
this
hold
is
on,
the
stop,
CNBC
stop,
host,
stop.
yeah.
This is the distorted version. You can see in there that it's edited. Now, play the actual version, Jamie.
What'd you find?
In the actual version, you see that he's not talking about pure financial benefit for the people that invest in
Now's not
the
the
actual.
time.
Play the. So this is very important. This is the real version
Over the last 2
without
decades,
the editing.
And you figured out the return on investment for that. And it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
Well, it's pretty impressive that
Baltimore
when
Crows.
you take these vaccines, get them to
Peter's
be very
cap.
inexpensive by
Good
making
boy.
big volume commitments, have
We
that
need to
right
hurry.
relationship with the private
Can you
sector.
follow the scent?
Get the delivery system so they're really getting the coverage out there.
Come
We
on,
literally save
sniff.
millions of lives. And 20 years ago, when we created these new multilateral organizations, Gavi for the vaccines, Global Fund
That's it.
for HIV,
Take it to it. Ellis to
TB,
base.
we didn't know they'd be
Found Peter's
successful.
cap.
They've gone through lots of challenges about making sure the money gets there, making sure the efficiency is right. But as we look at upcoming replenishments for those, and we've got so much distraction politically that the international
We'll
needs
pick
like
up the
this
scent.
could
I'm not
get
risking him
eclipsed if
losing
we're not
it.
careful.
I'll keep
And
you
we see
posted.
a
Over and
phenomenal
out.
track record. It's been 100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than 10 billion. But we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else. The human benefit in millions of lives saved. So, we're here with a pretty strong message that although all these other issues are very important, let's not forget about the great success in global health and maintaining that commitment.
I think the numbers that you ran through were if you had put that money into an S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends, you come up with something like $17 billion, but you think it's $200 billion.
Here, yeah, helping young children live, get the right nutrition, contribute to their countries, that has a payback that goes beyond any typical financial return.
Damn it. Scott?
See, that's what he really said. And people have edited that, and they're passing it around like, oh my God, this guy's a monster. Who just wants to give you this vaccine because he wants to make money. Clearly, that's not what he's saying. There's this weird narrative. There's this weird meme. There's this weird conspiracy that Bill Gates is some fucking demon that just wants to make money off of vaccines, and he's pushing vaccines.
It's bad memories of that Clippy.
Clippy?
You remember Microsoft Word? His old.
What are you talking about?
Sorry, Microsoft Office. It used to have this super annoying little helper guy named Clippy that would pop up and correct everything that
Oh,
you're doing.
that dickhead. I
Yeah,
remember
he
him.
sucked, and it's point. No, so yeah, no. Look,
I just wanted to put that video out there because so many people have sent me the original video, and I got really tired of typing. That's not what he said.
Nope.
You got to listen to what he's talking about. Is the benefit for society?
hell is
Like
he?
it's not just financial benefit from the companies that are making these vaccines. It's also the benefit for these children growing up and contributing to society. And that the more we put into this, the better it is for everybody.
And what he's talking about is trying to think smarter about philanthropy, right? So he's a rich guy, like a lot of rich guys. He gives a lot of money away, but traditionally you get a lot of, put your name on the wing of a museum, just give money to somebody who seems nice. And Gates has really been a leader in trying to think more analytically about what's a high value. He calls it their investment, right, in making the world a better place. There's an organization, some people I'm friendly with, run called GiveWell, and they do all this kind of analysis. And so they show that giving insecticide-treated bed nets to people in West Africa to keep malaria off them, that's incredibly cost-effective. There's some a group called Deworm the World, and they help kids in, I think, Central Africa with these intestinal worms that make it impossible to sort of be well-nourished because you've got parasites living in you. And it's a hard problem, right, to understand not just how can you help people, but what's the best way to help people. And what Gates is saying is that childhood vaccinations are really up there. They're high on the list of high-return public health interventions because when you could save a kid's life, that does so much good, broadly speaking.
But it's bizarre that someone was willing to edit that clip and make it look like a completely different thing that he was saying. And that this is one of the things that's going around today is that Bill Gates is somehow or another this evil person that wants to vaccinate everybody because he wants more money.
Yeah.
Like that guy is worth so much fucking money, and he doesn't really work anymore. You have to realize he's not really working at Microsoft.
Well, he doesn't work in pharmaceutical companies at all.
No, his whole business model is really around a giant percentage of it is around philanthropy, and that's what he's kind of dedicating his time and effort to. The idea that all this positive stuff that guy does is all bullshit. He really just wants money from you. He's old. He's got so much fucking money. Like what do you? It's so crazy. It's just this is one of the weird things that's being tossed around today. One of the weirder conspiracy theories about for a lack of a better way to say it, unsophisticated people who are very attracted to conspiracy theories. But this is and the first time I saw it, I was like, what is he saying? Why would he say it like that? And then Jamie said, actually, that's a very edited clip. Here's the full one. I was like, well, that fucking makes sense. We got to tell people about this because it keeps getting tossed around.
And just, anything you see, videos on the internet, like before you hit the share button, like make sure you see context. No, I know.
So he's like, fuck this guy.
And this happens with all kinds, not just Gates, right? All kinds of things. People get little video clips and somebody writes it up and they're like, here we go. Like your bad enemy just did something horrible.
Right.
And everyone's like, oh yeah, fuck that guy.
Yep.
And you really gotta see it in the context. It's
Nobody
like
wants
the
that
dumbest,
anymore.
easiest thing.
They want an abbreviated, very simple, 100, not even new Twitter, old Twitter, 140 characters. They want to boil it down to a couple sentences. That guy, a piece of shit. He's a fucking Nazi. Great. Now it's all I need to know. Nazi. Yeah. I've seen it.
No, it's a terrible habit. These kind of things, they prey on our worst information instincts.
And also, they prey on our reinforcement of our echo chamber. That people love that. They love when, if you can solidify your position within an ideology, like this ideology accepts me, I'm a part of this tribe, I'm going to say some shit. That guy's a fucking Nazi. Yes, go Matthew.
Yeah.
You call him a Nazi. That's what you're supposed to do. But what happens when you meet a real Nazi now? Right? Now you've called Ben Shapiro a Nazi. He's a Jew. Like, what happens when you run into an actual Nazi? There's real Nazis out there. Like, now, what do you call that? That's a Nazi? That's a super Nazi?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually do try to stay
I
away
saw
from
someone who I
Nazis.
think is a really smart person called Candace Owens a Nazi.
Alice,
I'm like, okay, maybe she's misinformed.
maybe you
Maybe
should-
she says
No,
things that don't
we're
ring true
fine.
with you. Maybe she's maybe she's committed to an ideology that maybe there's some financial benefit in doing that. Maybe she's being paid to promote certain ideas that you don't think are accurate. That's not nuts.
The difficulty with saying, I think this person has like the wrong ideas about healthcare policy.
Yes.
Like that's okay.
Yes.
That's good. You disagree.
Yes.
We disagree.
Or the wrong ideas about race, or the wrong
I
ideas
mean,
about
but
policing,
whatever,
or
right? I mean, it's like there's a
Yeah.
lot of topics to disagree about
There's a
without
lot of
people being Nazis.
But there's a lot of people that don't want to have those conversations. They just rather categorize people in a very simple and simplistic way because it's more convenient. And there's also this willingness to dismiss people today. There's it's disconcerting.
Well, and the extremism, so I'll just, on Twitter, you see somebody saying, "Oh, well, she's a Nazi." It's like, that's not
How
right.
did it end up back
But then
here?
it's like, well, do I want to butt in? Right? Because then people get upset.
Right. Well, you don't want to get
tape
involved. Yeah.
inside.
And then you have this conversation that, look,
Might
I don't have
as
the
well
time to
see
go back and
what's
forth
on
on Twitter. I don't have the time to check in 5 minutes. How many people responded? Do I respond to those people? Well, this guy's just attacking me for no reason. That doesn't make any sense. Well, this person's actually got a good point. Well, how do I respond to this? And do I
Yeah,
have
you
to-
just give up all your hobbies and you can.
That's the problem. And the emotional commitment that you have to it, and the connection. Like Jamie Kilstein's a guy who used to be like a deep social justice warrior, and then he got attacked by them and ostracized for
Get
like,
it together, Ellis.
not even anything that makes a lot of sense. But then
probably
was really kind of
Peters.
open about how
Maybe Gold
crazy
can
he was
catch
while he was
scent.
doing it. He was like, I would post something on Twitter, and then I'd be incessantly checking it throughout the day, walking
Come
down
here,
the street, checking it, and trying to respond, and see who's responding to me, and then feeling when someone was angry, you're like, ah, and then like getting involved in that, and just the anguish and anxiety that I look at so many people that fight on Twitter, and I don't argue with people on Twitter at all anymore. I very rarely even respond to people, but what I do is I'll follow
know
a
what
few
to
people
do,
that are mentally
buddy.
insane,
Just like in
literally
training.
genuinely mentally
Good
ill.
boy.
They're intelligent people that
you
have
did great
gotten
on the
lost
force.
in the Twitter
You were so
web,
stubborn.
and they're stuck, and they just I'll go to their timeline just to reinforce that this is actually what's happening, and I'll see the degrading of their mental clarity over time, the fighting with people that goes on all day long, and you'll see 11 hours a day. Like literally, you look at their posts from the beginning when they start to when they end for the day, and it's 11 hours of fighting with people on Twitter. And you think about like, what else could you have done with that time that would have been productive? Did you learn anything about people during this time? Did you score points? Should you be playing video games instead of this? Like, what do you need to do? Go fucking get a
going
pick up
on,
game of
boy?
basketball going or something. Like, what do you need to do that will give you some sort of a competitive feeling that instead you're risking your emotions and I think taxing your mental health. I think there's a lot of I don't like the term mentally ill, but it is an illness. It's an illness. Like you're trapped. Just the same way a gambling addict is mentally ill. Twitter addicts are mentally ill. There's something wrong with that. It's not good for you. And so many people are involved in it. So many people are locked into these really weird, condensed conversations where you're getting what Alan Levinovitz calls processed information. And he's like, it's bad for you the same way processed food is bad for you. Like, it makes sense. The way he described it that way, I'm like, oh, that is a fantastic way of describing it. That is really what it is. It's processed information. Because it's not a person talking to you.
It's true. I will say though, I feel like Twitter. Okay, I have two minds about Twitter. I see people, and I see myself sometimes out there wasting time. It's like, what are you doing these fighting with people I'm doing it for? What's the point?
ahead,
I've
go
also
ahead.
learned honestly a lot on Twitter. Like I've met virtually or in real life a lot of interesting people out there who know a lot about different things. It's cool. For me, that's why it's dangerous. Is that it's actually a genuinely powerful
And beneficial occasionally.
Right, and hard
went
to just
down a
kind of
ravine and
step
headed
away from.
north
Like
Right.
I've
to an old
come to
campsite.
have dialogue with Nobel Prize winners, with businessmen, with successful politicians, with a lot of interesting writers
Well,
and
you didn't
thinkers and
find
academics
Pierce
and
Cap either.
scholars.
Listen,
But then I've also gotten
still on
sucked
the
into
trail. We'll keep
like
moving
being
north.
mad that
So I think we could look at it like
nobody's
right?
are dunking on me.
Yeah, that's fine. Nobody. The people.
Are they? I mean, we never know.
It might be Russian.
Find a
Sure.
It might be working for the IRA.
head north.
You know,
I'll look
internet
for a
research.
Internet
landmark.
research agency. Yeah, well, you got to stay away from
Direction.
Russians in general. Russians on the internet.
Really?
I don't know.
Keep you posted.
They're doing
Over
something.
and out.
I lived in Russia for a couple months a long time ago.
Yeah.
And,
What were you doing?
I don't know. I was like a high school student. So I was over there, and it was like some weird exchange thing in 1998. And I was helping the advanced English class of Nizhny Novgorod School 54, and met a lot of interesting people. And at least one of them went on to work in the Russian internet propaganda field.
Really?
Later.
Do you stay in touch with them?
Yeah. So she has a different perspective on Russian.
Hey, buddy, what's wrong?
What is the perspective?
Well, she thinks it's good.
Why?
Because, look, I don't endorse this viewpoint, I want to be clear, but I do think a lot of Americans don't understand how Russian nationalists see the world, right? And they feel that there was a bait and switch after the Cold War, that it was supposed to be that
Bullets.
communism was bad, that the Soviet dictatorship was bad, and that they liberated themselves
Bullet.
from
Search.
this bad regime, and that they were going to now have a better country. But then it flipped to America, quote unquote, won the Cold War, and then there was an ongoing process of anti-Russian American foreign policy that continued forward. And so that instead of disbanding NATO because the Cold War was over, it expanded.
What's wrong?
Right? To the Czech Republic, to Estonia.
Work, damn it.
There was war in Yugoslavia against Russia's traditional ally in Serbia. All these different kinds of things. I don't really endorse this point of view. I mean, I'm not a Russian nationalist, but it's interesting to hear from Russian patriots how they see this. That they feel that the United States, instead of saying, hey, congratulations, we're not
Yeah,
under communism
actually,
anymore, there's not a Cold War
You know if
anymore,
anyone's ever
that we
done
sort
any
of double
construction
down
work out here?
right on geopolitical activity after that. and that they are just pushing back.
Reinforced
So
concrete.
they're pushing back by
foundations or,
undermining democracy
trenches.
and pretending to be various groups and having them meet up and compete against each other. And
Yeah, that's
starting
the
conflict.
that's where you get into the flaws.
Yeah, like,
you say,
what do
well,
you-
how does it help to be like trying to sow like racial chaos in the
Yeah.
United States? Like who is the winner here? So that's why I say like I don't endorse it, but I do think that Americans benefit from. I mean, not just Russia, but just like trying to understand what the world looks like to some of these other countries
Sure.
that are like the bad guys, quote unquote, in our narratives.
Right, like Iran, like trying to imagine what it's like to be Iran today when you learn that we assassinated one of their nuclear
find out.
scientists, or if we didn't, the Mossad did, or
Right.
someone did. Like, we were assassinating people over there, and then like
If someone was murdering American nuclear scientists, we'd be quite upset about it.
on the flip side, Iranians are murdering Iranian patriots. Like they murdered one of their Olympic wrestlers.
The
because
government, yeah.
the government
It's very bad.
executed him because he participated in a peaceful protest. So they had him executed, and he's a Russian wrestling star, and apparently he's like a national star. And they wanted to let everybody know, like, we don't give a fuck who you are. We'll kill you.
No,
If you're not on our side, we'll kill you. It has nothing to do with whether or not you've done a heinous crime. Like, you represent the resistance to our totalitarian regime, and we'll fucking kill you. So for the Iranians, I mean, they have to be pretty torn over there. I mean, I don't know how they feel about us.
I mean, I'm sure.
But how the fuck they feel about their own government?
Right. I mean, it's a question of do they feel that we are actually helping
Right,
them
right.
with their problems,
Right.
with their own government, or are we, part of? I mean, you look at some of our, our friends in that region, the Saudis and the Emiratis and stuff. Those governments aren't so hot
No.
either. And
Well,
it's,
the Saudis, the whole, I mean,
I don't know how they feel about wrestlers attending
Jamal
protests, but I'm guessing not
Khashoggi-
that good.
The Khashoggi thing is
Right.
just fucking insane. I mean, have you, Brian Fogel, the guy who did that documentary
Mhm.
Icarus? He has a new documentary coming out called The Dissident about the Khashoggi.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Have you
Wanna
seen
see
it
that?
yet?
No, I haven't seen it. I wanna see
I've
that.
seen it. It's amazing.
I mean, that's just a.
It's heartbreaking, but it's amazing. It's deeply disturbing. It's like you watch that documentary and you're like, holy shit, man. Is this the clip for it? Yeah. When is that available? January 8th. He'll be in here.
There you go.
But, it's,
Not what I'd
he's
expect in
amazing.
the middle of the
The work that he
forest.
did with the Icarus was
Candy
bananas.
wrapper.
Like, it completely
Really?
blew the lid off of the
Come on,
Russian
boy, you
doping,
can do better
Olympic
than
doping.
that.
The fact that they literally figured out how to break into
Go
the
on,
piss supply
see if you can
and
find
change the
something
piss
else.
bottles out. They literally took out the bad piss and put in the good piss.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pee heist.
I mean, they basically had a state-sponsored
Take me
pro-doping entity that was disguised as an anti-doping agency. I mean,
That's crazy.
They doped all their athletes. Yeah.
Never here. I don't know.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about
We'll
that.
see. We'll see.
Yeah. I'm nervous about this country because I feel like I've never seen us more divided and more willing to be divided. Like this is like what you were talking about, like you going on the Ben Shapiro show, the people be upset with you. This is not this is not a normal thing for
There you
us
go,
to be
buddy.
so divided and so
this is
willfully
much
divided.
better.
And I think social media accentuates that, particularly the algorithms in social media. They accentuate that.
Yeah, I think the difference between what we've often had, which is diversity and disagreement and big gaps.
I give this game a 6 out of 10. It's another blooper game, which is typical, but I really like the segments where you have to use a video camera to avoid the monsters. This is definitely a trope that's been done in games, but it's done pretty well.